guys who warned him, don't talk about this. He was threatened. And he did actually stop talking about this for a little while after that, but as time went by, he's talked about it. It's just one of the most incredible aviation UAP stories that you're ever going to hear. And he got out of it alive.
Pilot Carlos de los Santos ultimately emerged from his harrowing mid-air encounter unscathed. But similar confrontations between civilian planes and UFOs have led to tragic consequences, including injuries, crashes, and even loss of life. The National UFO Reporting Center, or NUFORC, has counted at least 100 cases in the U.S. where flight safety was impaired because of close calls with unidentified aerial phenomena. And in at least one incident, it appears a collision with a UFO caused fatal results. Mobile, Alabama, October 23rd, 2002. Former NYPD pilot and flight instructor Thomas Precios departs from Mobile Downtown Airport, piloting a single-engine Cessna with the call sign Night Ship 282.
The story of Night Ship 282 is quite alarming. A Hollywood scriptwriter couldn't come up with this one. We have a NYPD pilot, a freight hauler, very experienced flight instructor, hauling documents from Mobile, Alabama, up north to Montgomery. Routine flight.
Due to poor visibility, Precios was flying by his instruments. Just 1 minute into the flight, he spotted something in the distance and immediately radioed air traffic control.
He saw what looked like another plane in the sky. It was just confirming that that was another plane up there. And then all of a sudden, he's alarmed, he's panicked, something is coming at him.
This pilot sees an object in front of him on a collision course with his plane. What does he do? He radios a request for permission to deviate. I must deviate, he says over the radio. He deviates. Silence. The transmission goes dead.
5 minutes after takeoff, Night Ship 282 crashes into Big Bateau Bay. Tragically, Thomas Precios is killed on impact. When investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, arrive at the scene, they discover parts of the Cessna scattered over an area of nearly 200 yards.
The plane is not just demolished, it's almost vaporized. Something obviously hit the plane. Props are damaged, the wings are damaged, fuselage is damaged, wholesale damage inside the mechanics of the airplane.
It becomes apparent he has collided with something in mid-air.
A mid-air collision of such extreme force would naturally send two wrecks spiraling to the ground. But an extensive search of the area produced only one aircraft.
No other wreckage was ever found. No other craft, which would have presumably done this. The most bizarre thing about this is that there are these strange red markings all over parts of the aircraft. These red markings have not been identified as far as I can tell. And they're in a variety of places of the aircraft.
The NTSB suggested that whatever it hit was this color red, or had this red coating on it. And when it hit, it rubbed off on this guy's craft. They also found pieces of metal in the wings that didn't belong to the plane. Various pieces of metal were embedded in the crashed plane that weren't part of that plane. So, something metal, something red. But at the end of the day, a mystery.
Clearly, this is one of the rare occasions where if there was a collision that obliterated the plane, killed the pilot. And the FAA, the aviation authorities, and the investigations that followed
also some extraterrestrial incident where perhaps a flying saucer or other craft hit this plane, or the plane itself hit the craft.
For UFO researchers, the tragic case of Thomas Precious raises the question: is it possible that there have been other fatal collisions with UFOs that have gone unreported, or happened before the pilot could radio air traffic control? As far as ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, it is a question worth investigating, given a number of highly unusual encounters pilots have started sharing with the public. And while the FAA continues to dismiss such reports, another government agency, one focused on outer space, is taking notice of possible extraterrestrial activity on Earth. In recent years, more and more pilots are coming forward to say that unidentified aerial phenomena pose a serious risk to the flying public. The Federal Aviation Administration, however, continues to downplay the danger.
The FAA is all about flight safety, and yet they don't accept UFO or UAP reports from civilians. The FAA is essentially telling you, civilian, I don't care what you've encountered, and we don't have to keep statistics on it, and we therefore don't have to do anything about this impossible phenomenon, which we don't know what we could do. The FAA does not want civilians reporting UFOs because they don't want the public stirring the pot. This is something that could, in theory, become actionable through FOIA requests, for example. You have a civilian saying, I'd like to know how many civilians are reporting UFOs to the FAA. And then what do they do? How many thousands of reports are they going to be releasing? They don't want to get into that at all.
I think it goes to this idea not of air traffic safety, but not wanting to alarm the public.
But now that the U.S. government is paying serious attention to UAP encounters reported by military pilots, at least one agency is ready to listen to civilian pilots as well. And to the surprise of many, it is America's top space agency, NASA. In October 2022, NASA assembled a team of 16 scientists and experts for a first-of-its-kind investigation into unidentified aerial phenomena. In order to collect new data, the space agency also announced it is taking over management of the Aviation Safety Reporting System, or ASRS, a public service website that encourages pilots to submit anonymous reports regarding UAP sightings.
NASA has something now called the Aviation Safety Reporting System, and this is a mechanism whereby pilots can report UFO sightings anonymously if they choose, and it says on the website, this is non-punitive. We will not come after you for this, there's no comeback, just make your report.
It suggests to me that there's something else out there. NASA knows about it, and they want to know more about it. And so they are sort of surreptitiously saying, we'll listen to your story now. We're collecting a database now of what is happening in our skies, and so that is why I think NASA is ultimately taking the lead on this.
People are saying, why NASA? Why not the FAA? Does it perhaps tie in with the fact that NASA is now studying UFOs? Maybe an indication, an intriguing clue, that a lot of the incidents of most import happen in the real upper atmosphere, where we are going into space. I don't know, but that's, in a sense, that's not the point. The point is we now have this receptive environment into which pilots can finally speak out about the UFOs that they are seeing on a very frequent basis.
As far as ancient astronaut theorists are concerned, encouraging commercial pilots to come forward with their stories may finally provide critical proof that civilian aircraft do, in fact, encounter UAPs in our skies.
There's a deep history of UFO sightings, and the obvious threat to aviation is becoming more and more prevalent. We have to start taking
this. I challenge anybody to take anything you have and put it out there. Don't hesitate, because maybe you're going to open the door to bigger and better things for mankind.
As more civilian pilots come forward to report their encounters with unidentified aerial phenomena, will it be revealed that such incidents occur far more often than we would ever imagine? And if so, could bringing these incidents to light also bring us one step closer to learning the truth about just who or what has been occupying our airspace for thousands of years? Perhaps one day soon, the strange craft in our skies will descend to Earth. And when they do, we will know for certain that we are not alone. Enormous, megalithic structures of mysterious origins.
There are huge walls, gigantic limestone blocks that have been there for thousands of years.
A vast underground complex
This is a remarkable structure, hewn from solid rocks.
containing the remains of what some believe to be otherworldly beings.
We find this enormous collection of elongated skulls. Are we dealing with extraterrestrials?
Could the ancient mysteries that exist on the Mediterranean islands of Malta be connected to local legends of alien visitation and giant hybrid beings?
This right here is a smoking gun.
We have to accept the fact that they will teach from the sky.
There is a doorway in the universe. Beyond it is the promise of truth. It demands we question everything we have ever been taught. The evidence is all around us. The future is right before our eyes. We are not alone. We have never been alone. In the center of the Mediterranean Sea, between Italy and Africa, lies a three-island archipelago that makes up the Republic of Malta.
Malta is this really small island nation just south of Sicily. And it's so small it's only 122 square miles in its entirety. But because it's a dead center of the Mediterranean Sea, Malta really packs a punch historically.
Malta has been a strategic outpost for many of the most powerful cultures in the world. From the Phoenicians to the Romans and even the British Empire. But what makes Malta one of the most unique locations on Earth are its massive stone ruins, whose origin could date back thousands of years before any known civilization ever set foot on her shores.
It was assumed that Malta was a long-lost Greek colony from the Mycenaean period, and this goes from, maybe 800 BC to sometime before 1200 BC. However, because of radiocarbon dating in the mid-20th century, we discovered that Malta is actually one of the oldest megalithic sites in the world.
Mainstream archaeologists now know that Malta's oldest megalithic structures were built at least 5,600 years ago. But little is known about who these ancient builders were and how long their culture existed.
One of the most pressing questions about the megalithic builders is what happened to these amazing super smart guys who built all this? Because the last known evidence of them being there is about 3,000 years ago. They were there 1 minute, archaeologically speaking, and gone the next.
While the world's first known human civilization, the Sumerians, is said to have emerged in Mesopotamia around 4000 BC. Some researchers believe the The ancient inhabitants of Malta lived on the Mediterranean islands thousands of years earlier. As evidence, they point to mysterious carvings found throughout the area called cart ruts.
Something that Malta is very well known for archaeologically, besides the megalithic temples, are the cart ruts. These are ruts literally in the limestone rock. The traditional view is that they were eroded into the rock, literally by carts being pulled over the soft rock.
We don't know what these cart ruts are. You could speculate it was for a wagon, for a chariot. No, it was not, because sometimes they came together. The weight changes all the time, so it cannot be for chariot. For footsteps of the animals, etc. We have many theories what these cart ruts are, and we have no finally scientifically clear answer. The fact is, these cart ruts also go underwater.
We have cart ruts that go into the Mediterranean Sea, and then they also come out on the other side. How is this possible? Some of the cart ruts that extend from dry land down into the sea have reportedly been found at depths of as much as 140 feet. This presents a critical clue as to just how long ago they must have been created.
I suspect that some of these cart ruts are really ancient, and when I say really ancient, that is going back to before the end of the last ice age. Approximately 12,000 years ago, the ice age ended, we know, by incredible warming, incredible rises in sea level. So if some of these cart ruts go back to an early enough period, what looks like it's going into the water, that would have been dry land when sea levels were much lower.
If you propose the idea that 12,000 years ago, which is a fact, the worldwide water levels were lower, then all of a sudden these cart ruts that go into the Mediterranean Sea make sense. The last time that area was free of water, and when also Malta was connected to Sicily and to Italy with a land bridge, that was 12,000 years ago. So the fact that these cart ruts exist, to me, illustrates that an advanced civilization must have existed at that time. Could the cart ruts provide evidence that civilization existed on the islands of Malta as much as 12,000 years ago? Until recently, mainstream scholars would have considered such a notion to be impossible. But then, in 1994, archaeologists discovered the ruins of Göbekli Tepe in southeast Turkey. It is the first archaeological site in the world that proves its age dating as far back as 12,000 years, around 10,000 BC. The discovery and the official acceptance of Göbekli Tepe's dating has changed the history of archaeology.
Göbekli Tepe is a series of kind of oval-shaped stone circles that have T-shaped pillars as the stones, with two central pillars in the center. The thing is, many of these stones are over 20 feet tall. Huge, they're serious monoliths. And this was the era of hunter-gatherers. So who could have done it? We really don't know.
I've studied Göbekli Tepe in great detail. The Malta temples, by conventional dating, go back maybe 6,000 years ago. But I wonder, and this is based on my own work and analysis, if the origins of the Malta temples may go back to a much earlier period also.
We have to be open to the possibility that whoever built the structures on Malta were not in fact human beings, but were perhaps a separate race, and their existence and even their origins is completely shrouded in mystery.
Could it be that the incredible megalithic structures on Malta are as much as 12,000 years old? If so, who created them? Perhaps further clues can be found by closely examining the island's mysterious temples and local traditions about a giant being who came from the stars. The Republic of Malta, situated across the island nation's 122 square miles, sit the remains of 7 megalithic sites. These include the 2 temples of Gigantia, Hajarim, Imnidra, Tarshin, Tahashrat, and Skorba. These marvels of ancient construction were all built with the same type of Maltese limestone, which was extracted from local quarries.
The fact that they were moving around these multi-ton blocks, building these temples, and actually, when you look at them, moving the blocks within very, very narrow confines. Okay, it's one thing to move a block out in the open that's multi-ton, but to then place it systematically and very carefully next to another one, next to another one, next to another one, to form these beautiful temple structures, that's a real engineering feat.
While there are some researchers who believe that Malta's megalithic temples could be as much as 12,000 years old, mainstream scholars believe they were created no earlier than 3600 BC, during what is known as the Neolithic Age. And they also theorize that the massive structures were built by a human culture that used only primitive stone tools. Archaeology suggests at the time, we barely invented the wheel, we barely had tools, there was no known language, and we had no writing. Well, let's step back for a moment and think about this. From an evolutionary and technology perspective, that makes no sense, because you begin with simple, you continue bigger, bigger, and then biggest. Like you start small. What we have in the case of the Maltese structures is that the biggest are the oldest. So that makes zero sense from a logical perspective, because there was no evolution in technology. The archaeologists, they agree with this.
To construct similar temple after similar temple with the same material without evidence of writing shows a high degree of communication. And we find terracotta models, in fact, of temples. And archaeologists have suggested perhaps that this is an early architect's rendering. This is more evidence of the high level of thought and ability that went into the construction of these temples.
No written records have ever been discovered to explain who built the megalithic temples in Malta. However, local traditions of the Maltese people have offered a stunning possibility. They claim that the massive structures were built by a race of giant beings who came to Earth from the stars.
There is a story that a meteorite came down from the heavens and turned into a goddess, a giant named Sansona. And the locals, of course, were terrified of this giant. But at a place called Gigantia, she started building a temple and moved stones much larger than any human could ever move, and assembled this structure that was so massive. It remains to this day still a place of mystery, still a giant's construction.
When you see these cyclopean stones, some of them weighing as much as 50 tons, you can appreciate why we have the story of this giantess Sansuna.
The local legends of Sansuna may sound incredible to some. However, in the 17th century, a Maltese nobleman named Gianfrancesco Abella claimed to have found forensic evidence that these legends may have been based in fact.
In the early 1600s, Gianfrancesco Abella was living on the island of Malta. And he actually wrote about the fact that giants were involved in the construction of these sites.
Bring it the
One
fuck
of the
on!
reasons he wrote this is because he said he found bones
giant teeth all across the island. And there were other reports of them coming forth at this time.
In order to investigate the local legends connecting giant extraterrestrial beings to the massive structures on Malta, in 2022, ancient astronaut theorist Georgios Tsoukalos traveled to Malta's oldest megalithic structures, the temples of Gigantia on the island of Gozo. There, he met with Franz von Avendonk,
I'm Giorgio. Pleasure to meet you.
an expert in Maltese history, who has lived on the island since 1991.
Look at this. I mean,
Gigantic.
it is.